Hey, what's good, everyone? Twisted here with Open Sorcery, and today we'll go ahead and talk about protection magic with my lovely co-host Debbie here. Something that we probably should have gone ahead and covered a while back, but honestly, there's like, we'll get to it eventually. No rush and all that sort of thing. And honestly, with that, with allowing time to ferment and to allow for us to come up with different methods and all that is a little bit more expansive than we probably would have tackled initially. So patience is in fact a virtue, or at least I agree with that. I know Debbie has a different perspective in relation to that.
Oh, thanks. I'm being called out. I I need my protection magic already. Just fuck.
Yeah, there you go. But yes, so in relation to any and all of the protection magic, right? There's a variety of methods that one can undertake in relation to it. The first thing that comes to mind is different energetic methods and manners and all that. And I know that I'll be bringing up different things and a lot of explanation by Debbie in regard to how she utilizes these methods quite a bit. Because I'm not gonna lie, for me, I'm very much keep it simple, stupid, and don't really utilize a very tool belt in at least this aspect of things. But the first thing that comes to mind is the energy bubble sort of method. I know that you have spoken briefly on it before in one of the little shorts or something like that. But go ahead and speak about it a little bit more so here and the energy bubble method.
Okay, so energy bubble, this is all about visualization. So we know in terms of energy, we have our own aura, right? So in doing like the energy bubble, we are pushing out negativity from the inside. So I know how I do that with my own children, because I remind them to put up their energy bubbles in public, because I am that mom. Um, you start with your breathing, and through your breathing, every time you're breathing in good energy through your nose, um, filling up that bubble. That bubble is expanding and getting bigger. Every time you breathe out, you are expelling negativity from within yourself and from the area around you, because your personal bubble is not just like right up against your skin, right? It's the area that is within proximity to you as well. And
Oh
so
yes.
with that, you're expanding that bubble. You just keep going with the breathing in the good shit, expelling the bad shit, um, until it is a distance that you want it to be. Which that could literally just be like a foot off of your skin, or it could fill an entire room. Like I know I do that before I go to sleep, and very much along the lines of like I want it to fill every corner of that room because I don't want no spooky scaries. I don't need that shit.
Yes. The spooky scaries. Don't want none of that shit.
No, I
No.
don't want none of that shit. I no. They like to wake me up too much, and I'm tired of that shit.
But yes, so energy bubble, very useful and very simplistic to the point where even children can go ahead and do it and all of that. But along, I guess you can say, an evolution of that, a little bit more so along the lines of still energetic in the manner in which it's utilized, but there's definitely a lot of resources out there, so I'm not necessarily going to go ahead and cover it all too extensively. But creating a Merkaba, a divine vehicle, a quote unquote chariot around oneself, that is going to go ahead and be very much of service, not only just protection, but also astral travel, traveling in more so spiritual, metaphysical, less tangible manners, and all of that. And not only just like when you're asleep or when you're once again having out of body experience or astral projection or anything like that, but it's one of those tools for if you're following Judaism or you're following Abrahamic sort of esotericism or what have you, that is very, very key for going ahead and after this lifetime is over, helping you be able to forego any of these sorts of traveling issues once you've left your physical body, and being able to maintain the layers and variety of different aspects of oneself. And when it comes to Merkabahs, what are your thoughts, Devi?
Merkabahs, honestly, the way that I see Merkabahs, it's just being more in tune with the flow of your energy overall. I don't necessarily see it as like, oh, a divine vehicle or anything like that. While it has its uses and its purposes, and I see it more as like an internal plumbing system. Um, where you're recognizing your place in the overall. You're recognizing your piece of the pipe in a sense. So, um yes, it shows you your own energy sphere and things of that nature, but I'm not seeing it as a vehicle in a sense. It just kind of helps you place yourself. But that's my personal view on it.
Yes, yes. And you know that, and once again, that comes with, as you were stating, more so knowing thyself, more so bring built-in mechanisms. And once again, that the Merkaba in of itself is just one way to visualize it or to like go ahead and see it. And once again, that's through that's through a Judeo-Christian framework, Abrahamic framework. But of course, obviously, various other belief systems, traditions, go ahead and have their own sorts of names, affinities, that sort of thing. But that's just more so of an evolution of utilizing energy to go ahead and protect oneself
Absolutely.
when you don't necessarily have physical tools, you don't necessarily have access to other things, or you're just electing not to. Alongside that, in terms of magical sort of things, and thus energetic and all of that, and this is a little bit less of your own personal energy or drawing from, say, like, you know, a nondescript sort of source. Um, when it kind of ties in more so to like angelic magic or uh, the Western magical tradition and all of that, is the LBRP and the LIRP, and definitely more so the LBRP in terms of quote unquote protection. Well, granted, both of them can be utilized in a certain manner, but I guess the LBRP is just more so thought of as for protection. And for those who are unaware, these acronyms stand for the Lesser Banishing Ritual of the Pentagram and the Lesser Invoking Ritual of the Pentagram. And of course, there's a variety of different things that, different videos, books, all this sort of thing about both these methods. And it's pretty much like ceremonial magic 101. Those who don't necessarily know, but just for a brief sort of like perspective, go ahead, Debbie. Fire at it.
So LBRP, LIRP, incredibly useful. It's not necessarily well, okay. Let me start that sentence over. Yes, it is supposedly drawing energy from outside of yourself, but it is like plugging you into the universe itself. Um, just remember, you can banish away your whole life. Banishing without invoking is the dumbest fucking thing. Don't fucking do it. Okay? Just remember that as a lesson from Devi. Don't fucking do it.
Yes. And what she's referring to is that, as per recommendations of just like someone who's starting out, beginning practicing the LBRP, you know, like once or twice a day and getting the hang of that, and that being like the building block for other different sorts of ceremonies, rituals, all that sort of thing. You know, in doing that, you're cleansing a space of like negativity, but also at the same time, it's also positive energies that are not necessarily as materially grounded or based and all of that. So say you go ahead and drawing a lot of energy for prosperity, abundance, growth, and all these sorts of things. LIRP sort of method, or utilizing something else. If you go ahead and do the LBRP a bit too much, then you can go ahead and once again null and void and remove those sorts of beneficial energies you want to maintain and keep around for yourself and or others. So it's one of those things where you just got to be like, all right, make sure that you're not overdoing it, make sure that everything is balanced and all of that.
Oh,
But
absolutely.
yes.
Absolutely.
Now, in terms,
Well, hold
oh,
on.
go ahead.
One more, just quick aside on that. Think of it like an antibiotic. If you use too much antibiotics, all of your good bacteria is going to be gone at the same time. So you use it when necessary. Overusing it is bad.
Oh, it's very good analogy. Yes, it's very good analogy. Or drying your damn skin when you go ahead and take too many hot showers.
I feel
And
personally
all
attacked.
that's not a personal attack. That's honestly just like a general sort of thing of like whether it's just a person who deals with skin conditions or they just got regular skin. Like your body has essential oils within it that help the skin go ahead and regulate, and all that. So just more so of like proper maintenance of like, all right, do I need to take a hot shower? Or can I go ahead and deal with a cool shower? Maybe just using a washcloth or anything like that, and making more so of a conscious decision in that regard. Well, yes. Now, speaking of that physical sort of example, I guess methods that we're going to be going ahead and talking about, of course, it involves energy and all that, but these are a little more so to like uh, a long series of physical items and tools and things that you can utilize for protective purposes. And the first thing just to mention is since we mentioned LBRP and LIRP and ceremonial magic, makes sense to go ahead and mention salt. You know, I'm sure I've seen plenty of films, plenty of movies of people doing magical rituals and all that for purposes that the whole thing, the whole shtick of having a circle of salt around itself while going ahead and calling upon angels, demons, gods, goddesses, and the like and all of that, as well as utilizing salt for other like in other manners aside from casting a particular protective circle, and it doesn't have to be that particular shape. But when it comes to salt, go ahead and speak on that, Devi. Granted, you have gone ahead and done so in an individual video that we've already put out rather recently based on time of this one releasing. But just briefly, salt. How can that be utilized for protective means?
So salt and protective means you can use it in sachets. You can use it in candle work. Really incredibly versatile. You can literally put salt in water and use that as like a cleansing water to purify yourself. I know a lot of people use natron in their quote holy water, and that's a type of salt. So one, your body needs it on a basic level. Two, it's one of those think in terms of earth, right? If we're thinking in terms of earth organisms and things like that, you put salt in the soil just the right amount, everything grows fertile. You put too much, it starts to die. So, really, putting salt on weeds or things that are undesirable in your garden prevents their growth. Putting them in just the smallest amount, the just right amount with the ones that you want to grow will benefit it greatly. So, it really it depends on how far you want to go with it.
Yes, yes. So finding the optimal balance. But next, when when it comes to different things you can do of a physical means to go ahead and provide protection. This is definitely more so your area than mine. It is warding or utilizing different varieties and such.
Yes.
And I have a couple methods here, but before getting into those specific examples, what about warding using and all that immediately comes to mind?
Well, with wards or things of that nature, this is incredibly personal, right? Because you are using a symbol or a sigil or something that you create to create a barrier between something that you want to protect and something that could potentially hurt it. Like, I know one of my favorite wards to use is a hedge of thorns, and it's one that I have used since I was a kid. One of the good lessons that my mom gave me, where it doesn't require a physical object, it requires visualization. And I've spoken about it before. Um, but anything that would attempt to do harm gets skewered on the thorns of the hedge. Whereas what is inside of the hedge, the circle of bushes or whatever you want to call it, um, is protected as they go. So, you know, hedge of protection, hedge of thorns. Use them at will.
Yes. Um, but when it comes to what I have listed here, so you mentioned a hedge of fertilization. There's
You're cutting out a bit.
also,
Hold on.
oh, okay. Yeah, mic check, mic check.
Yep.
Yes, so you can go ahead and utilize the hedge of visualization, as Devi went ahead and mentioned. But alongside that, you can go ahead and have a broom over the door and all of that to, uh, help bolster entryways and what have you. And I know that's definitely more so your area of expertise than mine as well. So by all means, go ahead and speak on that.
I mean, a broom over the door, that's, we can go into like old wives' tales kind of thing, right? But that one has just always been said like they can't cross the threshold. You are creating a physical barrier in a sense where negativity cannot cross. And that's really the important part of wards is creating that barrier, either visual or physical, right? Um and that's genuinely the biggest thing is you have a beginning and an end to a ward. It is not a liminal space. It is solid, if that makes sense. Um, I know for myself, it's not just brooms over the doors. There might be sachets that have various things inside of them. To It really depends on the purpose. Is it drawing abundance? Is it creating a protective barrier? Dependent on what you want to do.
Oh, yes. And also something that is kind of similar in the sense of hanging it above a door as well is utilizing psalm magic. So from the Bible, Judeo-Christian Bible, there's granted obviously a variety of different iterations and editions of it, but you can go ahead and utilize different psalms for different magical purposes. For those who were not aware that you could do so, looking at it with more so of a practical lens than just going ahead and trying to gain learned virtues and different sorts of philosophical or moral teachings. But yes, utilizing Psalms 4 and 5 specifically by writing down both of them on a piece of paper, sticking it in ammonia, and hanging it above a door. It apparently causes a person to leave faster and for the energy to not remain within the home. And I say apparently because I have not utilized this manner myself. Debbie, you may have more experience with this particular method. I don't exactly recall. But if you haven't utilized it yourself, what are your thoughts on it?
I haven't used it myself. That is more in the hoodoo voodoo practices. And it's just like we had talked about with the broom over the door. What that is going to do is it's going to create a barrier. And when people who have negative intent for you, they may mean you ill, they are not your friends, even though they may be masquerading as friends. As soon as they cross that threshold, it is like they are completely and totally under a attack. So they may make any excuse to leave at that point in time. Which is not a bad thing. I'm all here for making your enemies flee and, not having to waste a bunch of energy to do so. Psalms is a great book to look at in terms of magic. I fully believe that one is very much along the lines of a magical grimoire within the Bible. But it's creating that barrier, just like we were saying, creating that physical threshold.
Oh, yes. And, us going ahead and talking about wards thus far, segueing a little bit more so into using just slightly different terminology. You mentioned sigils, right? And crafting those sorts of things, physical sigils, and, being physical ties to, different energetic sort of things that are ongoing and all of that. So crafting them, and we've discussed that singularly as well previously. But, there's other things in terms of sigils, more so along the lines of like physical objects that one can use, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, you can go ahead and have different sorts of like, generally speaking, talismans and amulets for protective measures, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there's a vast variety of them. So, for example, right, there's the very famous Hamza, the evil eye. And for those who are unaware, if you ever see a symbol of like a hand, which usually is the right hand, with a eye in the middle, that is a Hamza, at least based on the Jewish naming of said, symbol, item, tool, totem, you can even say, which we can speak of in terms of other traditions in a moment. But yes, that right there. While it is present in many other, cultures and traditions and symbology, that is more so the more so popular one, at least in the West, under the name of the Hamza, the evil eye, which it's called the evil eye and all that, but it's helping to protect and ward off those who would want to do harm by, one means of doing so is giving someone the evil eye and all of that. So, and pretty much I'll go ahead and pass it on to you to elaborate further on that and or totems or talismans and amulets and all that sort of.
Oh, absolutely. So the evil eye, I actually have one in my home that I keep just to kind of ward that away. But think of it this way: not everybody who has innate magical gifts or spiritual gifts or is energetically in tune actually practices, right? That can be like a loose cannon or like a baby viper, right? The the most poisonous snakes are going to be the babies because they can't control the venom that they put out. So the evil eye, in a sense, is it's not just like, oh hey, I'm protecting you against other practitioners and things of that nature, because majority of practitioners, let's be real, are not just out here slinging hexes left, right, and center. That's not the purpose of it. But those that are spiritually gifted, those that are energetically gifted, but can't control it yet or haven't started practicing any sort of that or will not practice any sort of that, because it can be somebody that's an adolescent to an elder. Like, it doesn't matter what age you are. If you're not open to that kind of experience but you have that innate
Yeah.
gift, it's going to happen regardless. But the Hamsa and the evil eye, it is going to protect you from a lot of those more negative emotions, because emotions are incredibly powerful in magic, right? This is why learning to kind of control yourself, know thyself, and all of that is so important in the work, so that we can actually channel some of those stronger emotions and use that as a battery pack to the spell work that we do. But for those that are unpracticed, uneducated, unaware, those really negative ones like anger and envy and just hatred, you could catch somebody's ire just for a little thing, right? You don't know their temperament. But the
Why you looking at my man like that? Nuh-uh, honey.
Jesus. I mean, think about it. You start doing well for yourself, you're having a lucky streak, and then somebody who might not be having a lucky streak, might be having a really bad downturn of luck, looks at you and they're just like, fuck that guy. Like, I want that. Like, that's bullshit. Why him, not me, kind of thing. But you don't want that
Jealous,
energy.
envious.
You don't want that energy on you. You don't want that needy, jealous energy. Why not me on you? So you use a Hamsa or a evil eye to ward that off. It's just like, nope, I don't need any of that shit. Nope.
Yes. Oh, yes. And what about other totems or talismans and amulets? Any other methods or means relating to that?
Well, honestly, that is going to depend on the person. So you can create sigils, right? Because all a sigil is, excuse me, is a symbol that you give meaning to. That's all it is. Everything is just a picture until you give it meaning. That is why art museums are so popular, right? Because we sit there and we're like,
Yeah.
I wonder what this artist was attempting to depict. And you're trying
Yes.
to plan it out, but you giving intention to something, whether it being drawn on a piece of paper, formed out of clay, formed out of glass, doesn't matter what the material is, until you give it meaning, it is meaningless. So you create something and you put your intention behind it of protection, it is protection, period, end of story. So you could literally use a ring, and I've seen so many people do that, right? Where it's just like a simple band. Doesn't have to be a particular material, but it can be if you want it. And you wear it, and that is a protective amulet. But until you give it that meaning and you give it that purpose, it doesn't have that purpose. You have to put that
Yes.
energy in behind it. And whether you put that energy in by sitting with it and meditating with it, lighting a candle and putting it underneath the candle, or, however you want to charge it or whatnot, it is meaningless until you give it meaning and purpose.
Oh, yes. Now, for more, they're physical items, but this is kind of like a little bit more flimsy on the side of that we can go ahead and utilize as examples are Japanese ofuda talismans. So if you're going ahead and wondering what those are, if you've seen any manner of anime or different Japanese or Asian films, it's where they have particular, little rectangular sheets of paper, and they have particular characters written on it, and thus, these are protective wards that you can place on shrines or within the home or any other, location to help, negative entity spirits, anything like that, go ahead and not mess with you. What have you. Alongside that, something that Devi mentioned to me recently and all that kind of came to her mind is what she deems as paper stars. And I definitely want you to go ahead and explain that a bit.
Oh, well, paper stars. Well, first, let me for the Ofuda. Um, think of it as a sign, right? We use signs in our daily life every day. Speed limit is this. Do not enter because that's a one-way only lane, right? We use these signs every day. Means nothing until we give it power, right? So, Ofuda, the paper talismans, that is more along the lines of like, you can't come in, private property, beware of dog, like, you, fuck off kind of thing. As for paper stars, this was really an idea that I had in terms of manifestation and in terms of magic work and intention. Because I was watching somebody fold paper stars and I was like, oh, that would be a great way to kind of focus your mind and your hands on the same thing. So just the simple paper stars that you create out of like a strip of paper and then you fold it like origami. My thought was, okay, write down your intention or manifestation or maybe even your affirmations on it for that day. Maybe like one at a time, and as you're folding it, you're focusing specifically on that affirmation or intention or anything of that nature, as a way to more so solidify your consciousness and your intention into that physical object. But again, this was an idea that I had, and it was just like right off the top of my head. I was not expecting you to bring that shit up. Good gravy. But I
Hey,
thought
a
that
physical object can be utilized for any purpose, including.
yes, it can be. It absolutely can be. And think about it. The more intention that you're putting into it and the more of them that you collect, because you can get like a jar and just start filling it up. And then once that jar is full of those paper stars that are just charged with your intention, you place that somewhere in your house where you're able to just draw on that, because all of that focus and intention and magic is in it to begin with. But I think that would be a that could honestly be a good joint project as well, because if you and the person you're working with, or maybe your kids, or like whomever, um are working towards the same goal and everybody is focused in that same way, that can have that joint energy but be able to combine it more easily in a sense.
Yes. And in terms of physical items of the sort of, uh, talisman or amulet sort of manner, or totems, or what have you, or physical items that are wards, the one that comes to mind is a final example, at least, for what I already had prepared, were dream catchers,
Mm-hmm.
So Native American dream catchers, you place them up above your bed or somewhere within your room. And, similar to how you mentioned, you utilize an energy bubble for when you go to sleep and all that. Of course, any sorts of, what you said, spooky scaries, trying to go ahead and mess with you while you're trying to go to sleep
Mm-hmm.
and or are asleep and all that. The dream catcher will go ahead and help, uh, once again, as it states, like catch said sort of thing, like cast, having that sort of net, or drawing that into it. Or Debbie, you explain your perspective of how that happens to work, how dream catchers happen to operate.
Well, honestly, dream catchers I've always seen as having a spirit of their own, and it's like a this might sound bad, it's like a spider, and something tries to get in and it gets caught in the web, and that spirit that is over the dream catcher itself gobbles it up, uses it as energy for the next one, and it's like playing goalie, um, allowing the good stuff through, but preventing the negative ones from passing on into the space.
Oh yes. So, in speaking about those sort of means and manners, right?
Mm-hmm.
Moving on to like, uh, utilizing something you're definitely more so familiar with, you definitely about individually, is candles, right?
Mhm.
So using candles for setting up matters of protection. So by all means, go ahead.
Well, candles, we can use them in a couple of different ways. So candles, we can say, okay, we're charging something with the candle. So flame is energy. We are transferring that energy to either the
Yes,
physical
lovely.
object. I
Yes.
know, I'm so sorry.
No,
Either
no,
the
don't apologize. No, no, you think you yawn. You do your dang thing.
we Jesus.
You're spelling the sleepies.
I mean, yes. But we are either transferring that energy to the physical object or picture or image in our mind the of the thing that we're charging. Like for example, one of my friends I just gave 2 candles to because his land is haunted as fuck to the point that both him and his wife were experiencing some creepy shit. And I know he kept telling me like nobody's ever lived on the land, nobody's ever lived on the land. I'm just like, dude, you've got a creek on that shit. Water has energy. Water attracts spirits, especially running water. You're going to have things flowing to you constantly, right? And just because a person hasn't settled on the land, which you don't know that, just because it's not, quote, civilized, doesn't mean that somebody hasn't lived on that land at one point in time. There are other spirits that do things. And if you and your significant other are both experiencing sleep paralysis and having those moments, nah. So I gave him 2 candles and I told him, go ahead with your wife, sit down. Um, and I wanted them to do the energy bubble and pretty much starting that from the candle because they're less experienced in magic, but I wanted them to do it together as a um, joint energy to claim their home as their own and have like the candle as like a backup purifier behind it. But that was also some of my own candles that I create. So they already have protection and healing kind of infused in them from my own intention. So it's like a little third party in there just kind of cheering them on and doing that for them. But having that candle help boost the energy that they already have and giving them a focal point because flames are an excellent focal point and having something to concentrate on is great. But with candles, there's also, with any of your protections, you can carve into the candle. You can put sigils into the candle. And then as the candle is burning down, that sigil is charging and then being released at the end because there's 2 different ways to use a sigil, having one used as an amulet or a talisman and then charging and releasing, where it is breaking the sigil in a sense and allowing that energy to go out and manifest. But that's really 2 different ways to use it. Neither one of them is wrong. It just depends on what purpose that you're going for with those. um and then just candles overall, you can use color associations. Doesn't necessarily matter if you're burning just the candle itself, burning it with herbs, burning it with oils. Versatility, we love a good versatile tool.
Yes. And along the lines of burning things, right?
Mm-hmm.
We also can go ahead and burn incense as well to go
Mm-hmm.
ahead and fill an area with smoke and also not only just incense but smudging as well, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And doing that once again, this is something that you specifically have gone ahead and covered because definitely your area of expertise as opposed to me, and definitely speak about the more so utilizing these tools and methods in a protective manner.
So think about it this way: if you fill a space with a certain energy, other energies don't have the ability to go into that space. You cannot put more in when it's absolutely full. So that's really the concept behind incense. And even like if we're talking more on like a physical non-magical level, um in India they did studies where people have always burned incense, heavy incense. So like think fill in the space with fucking smoke in houses of those that are ill. And that has proven to decrease and mostly eliminate the viruses or illnesses that are in the house. So it is killing off that bad bacteria. It is preventing that from going forward. And that's been proven. So, well, dependent on what the incense is itself. I believe that one was sandalwood. Um, but you're filling that space and preventing other things from coming in. This is honestly, as an aside, why when I was talking about the LBRP, LIRP, things like that, if you don't invoke, if you don't bring positivity into a space when you are clearing it out, if you don't fill that cup, bad shit is going to try and come back in. And you can't do that. You have to fill the space with the particular energy that you want it to be.
Oh yes, it is. I guess if you are going ahead and you have a home, right? And say termites have gone ahead and messed it up. They fucked it up. They've bitten it all down to like where it's very flimsy or it's not as sturdy, and you're wanting to go ahead and gut it, remove all the outdated, all the stuff that is within said home. You got to replace it. With better insulation, fuller insulation. You got to make sure that everything else is sturdy and all of that. That you have replacement floors as opposed to just getting rid of, like, say, the wood that's like just about ready to go ahead. And next time you step, you start falling through it. Or whatever sort of flooring or ceilings that you in fact have. So that is pretty much like the same sort of thing, but for your energetic home, your energetic environment, energetic space. Reinforcement.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because it's
Yes.
not just about like, oh, hey, we got rid of the bad shit. Okay, what are you going to put in it? You can't live there if you got no floor. You can't live there if it's not actually serving the purpose of existence. So give it a purpose, fill it with purpose.
Yes. And to continue on, right? So burning incense, smudging, all these sorts of things, or maybe sprinkling, preparing your candles with this, right?
Mm-hmm.
Utilizing different herbs and plants
Mm-hmm.
to go ahead and now those which have protective qualities, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the examples that I have listed here that you have mentioned or others have mentioned over time, and just immediately come to mind is say lavender, rosemary, sage, peppermint, uh, palo santo, things of that nature.
Mm-hmm.
What other sorts of herbs and plants do you happen to think of
I
when
mean,
it comes to
there is so
protective
many.
beings?
There is so many in terms of protections. So really what I'm going to recommend in terms of herbs is when you look them up, what secondary is there as well and how does it protect? Um, because peppermint and things like that, that's a deterrent, right? Lavender is more of like a protect from the inside, whereas peppermint is a deterrent. So I like using those in tandem because it's like creating a warm, cozy fire where you're protected on the inside, and then like this bite from the outside where it prevents things from coming in. I know in books and things like that, it lists like frankincense and myrrh um, as herbs, even though that is a
Misconception?
it's in Magick, it's an herb, but it's not grown that way. It's a sap. It's a I'm trying to remember the word. Um but it's not like plant life itself. It's a byproduct of plant life. But it can be used very
Yes.
much in the same way, and I love using frankincense and myrrh um in so much, because it very much has that same property. It's just more of like a warm cleanse, and then a strong guard at the door. um I know I love my witch hazel. That one brings stuff out. Wormwood, um mistletoe's a good one. It's there's so much in terms of herbs that strengthen and bring out the protective properties of your home and allow you to just really feel safe. But I would say, just when you are looking at herbs, what are the secondary properties of it? Because if you are okay, well, let's, you know what, let's be practical and bring it out, right?
Yes.
So if we look up lavender, right? Because we already mentioned lavender. And I like keeping my encyclopedias on me, because if I was expected to just memorize all of this at all times, instead of keeping just the spark notes in my head and having the books in front of me, I would go crazy. Lavender is great. All of the attributions to it: love, protection, sleep, chastity, longevity, purification, happiness, and peace. Okay, that's a lot, right? So do you see why it
Yes.
would provide that warmth from the inside? So it's saying love, but chastity, chaste love, love that is more along the sides of pure rather than just like lustful, wham bam, thank you, ma'am. But it's got that protection in it, right?
Yes.
Sleep, peace. So you're able to feel more at ease and calm in your own home. So those secondary aspects of it are just as important as the protection aspect. For peppermint, because we were just talking about that one. I'm in the piece.
Yes.
Okay. Da, 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 da. If I can get to it.
And while you're looking for it, what particular book are you going ahead and
I
for
love
people?
Cunningham's Encyclopedia of Magical Herbs. I love his encyclopedias, even though I may not be Wiccan and follow the Wiccan religion. I find a lot of his information is incredibly helpful. Um, so peppermint, purification, sleep, love, healing, and psychic powers. So you realize the instead of protection, it says purification, right? Because verbiage
Yes.
matters. Um, but it still has like the sleep, love, and healing. We love that. That's one of the reasons why I use it, right? I like everything to feel like really cozy and sleepy and just comfortable at home. But then again, I'm a fucking Cancer. That's just
Yes.
kind of that's how I do. Um, but purification in that it is going to draw out. It is going to prevent things from coming in. It's like, nah, you're not clean. You're not clean, you cannot enter. So the verbiage matters. And sleep, love, and healing. I love sleep. I like love. And I would prefer to be healing at all times, because if I am being injured by just being in my own home, that's a problem. If my safe space is
Yes.
not also providing a place for me to rejuvenate, that's a problem. So
Yes.
secondary and tertiary intentions, put them forward. As an aside of like a personal note, try to keep the herb blends simple. It does not have to be complex, because think about it this way: the more complex you're making it, the more herbs you're adding in. As much fun as it might be to be cackling like a little witch and just You know, like,
Very strong witch
oh,
tackle, yes.
absolutely, absolutely.
Yes.
You know, just it's fun to just put stuff into the mortar and pestle and go, go, go. Think about how they actually blend and how they work together, because the other aspects of the plants may not cooperate the way that you intend them to, which experimentation, always experiment, please, for the love of God. There is no necessarily right or wrong way, but simplistic is good, because if you are firm in your intentions, you are firm in your purpose, then the magic is going to come out that way, versus this ambiguous kind of like, I might do what you want me to do, but I also, because you overloaded everything with power instead of just protection, it might just be like a buff bouncer that can't do much. Like, you know, the really really buff dudes, but they can't move around much. They couldn't touch their
Yeah.
hands behind their back to save their life. They're
Yes.
lacking in flexibility.
Yes.
So be able to specify what you want in that, and that would be kind of like my caveat to just going gung-ho with like a bunch of herbs.
Oh, yes. So, in short, when utilizing herbs and plants for different protective manners and means, go ahead and find out what sort of flavor of herbs and plants that you want to go ahead and utilize for the type of protection that you want.
Mm-hmm.
And also, when it comes to putting them together, think about, let's say, from the perspective of cooking, what sort of recipe and flavors you want to go ahead and put together to make an optimal recipe of whatever it is that you're concocting. Before moving on to, I guess, talking about something slightly different, is I did want you to touch on
Okay.
the Rose of Jericho, which you had mentioned
Oh
recently.
yes, Rose of
That could be used for protection as well as other things.
yes, the Rose of Jericho. This is a plant that I have kept for a while. I actually just within the last couple of days revived mine. Um, I mean, y'all know I've been going through some shit in my personal life, right? And so I'm
Oh, yeah.
finally at a point where I am just like, all right, we are reviving. And the Rose of Jericho is a very special fern, right? Ferns don't have seeds. They grow pretty much by propagation, um, from what I can see. Now, this has been used medicinally. It has uh, benefits for like childbirth or women's issues of the uterus and things of that nature. But for magical purposes and keeping it in your home, this is resurrecting aspects of your life, keeping the Rose of Jericho and keeping it well, mind you. Um, it can attract abundance. It can protect. It is very much a plant that is a protection while it is active.
Oh, yes. Yes. And to go ahead and move on, that for later on is chronologically it'll be a little more sense, and you'll see what I'm referring to, those who are listening, in just a bit. But in terms of what comes to mind next, let's talk about crystals.
Okay.
And I believe that you have another encyclopedia that will go be helpful in this regard as well. But oh yes, go ahead.
No, I was pulling it out.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Okay, I thought you were about to say something. Okay, but yeah. So, what comes to mind, at least for me, for of like initially what can be utilized for protection and also other means, but primarily protection in this context. There's obsidian, a black stone, rather infamous, called dragon glass. If you happen to go ahead and watch Game of Thrones, but in that sort of realm of things, right, and kind of like how it was utilized in that show itself. Um, you have a particular means and manners of utilizing obsidian, right? In a more so pointed manner. That this is called an obsidian blade, or you can utilize like in an arrowhead shape or something of that nature. And this, at least my coming across of it, was by Brother Yosef, New Life Tools. He has his own website and YouTube channel, so you can go ahead and hear the man's words for himself on that topic, whatever capacities he addresses it in. But pretty much the general notion is that having a piece of obsidian that is more so sharper or what have you, that you can utilize as a blade, as a means deterrent for negative entities that come into your space and all that. This is, I guess, you can go ahead and phrase it as the best defense is good offense. Whenever something comes in and permeates a space, so as opposed to like protecting means of preparing a fortress or setting boundaries and all that sort of thing. This is going ahead and being like, all right, I have my sword at the ready, and can you go ahead and have self defense at a moment's notice, and all of that. As well as utilizing Tiger's Eye and Black Torment, but and of course, there's many other stones. I know Debbie can speak on that, but for the obsidian blade and or arrowhead, what are your thoughts in relation to that, Debbie?
Wow, you turned into a robot there, but I was able to actually understand you, so I'm keeping it. Um,
Oh yeah.
so in terms of that, so a lot of obsidian actually comes out of Mexico, right? So with that, the native populations there actually stuck that into, I wouldn't say the sides of a stick, but they formed swords out of them. In a sense, where these things were fucking weapons, and you would die, you would fucking die, against them. And they were, while, because it's glass, of course, it's less stable than steel. That could do a hell of a lot of damage. I have part of the name in my head, but I can't remember the entire name of the weapon itself. But I believe a lot of that comes off of the use of it in terms of the swordsmanship. Um, but obsidian, it comes from volcanoes. It is volcanic glass. So because of that, it is embodying and just holding all of that destructive energy in it, but also because it's that black color, right? Because of all the coal and the ash and all of that, right? Um all of the debris from the earth getting all fiery and shit. It's absorbing all of that negativity. And in terms of the blades itself, you charge them in the daylight. You charge them in the daylight. And when you do so, it's absorbing, because black absorbs sun, right? There are some crystals that you charge in the day, there are some crystals you charge in the night, and there's some that you do not put in the sunlight whatsoever, because it will make that shit fade. But with obsidian, then you are cutting cords. It's like you are able to go and pierce through the veil on, or sit between the veil in a sense, and cut cords that you have, or soul ties that you have between you and another person, or many people, because you can go over the entirety of yourself and just get these leech like energies off of you, because that's incredibly important to do for your own spiritual health, wealth, and abundance, right? Because you cannot be abundant and you cannot be spiritually healthy or wealthy when you have a bunch of people leeching energy off of you. That it makes no sense, right? So that's really the purpose of that. In terms of other protective stones, kind of like the herbs, I would say find the secondary and tertiary purposes of the stone and the energies that they draw, because while it may be protective, maybe it's protective like a knight at the door, or maybe it's protective like a mother is protective. There's different feelings and different energies attached to it. Like I would say, as a good example, lepidolite is listed underneath protection. I have lepidolite, but it's also listed underneath spirituality because it's going to help you expand, but it's going to protect you while you do expand. So kind of like a guiding teacher, like a or a cocoon as you grow, but it grows with you. So that would be a really good one. Another example would be moonstone. I love moonstone and I keep a lot of moonstone, but that's listed under protection and sleep. As you see, there is examples of why I like a lot of sleep. So my herbs and my stones reflect this.
Yes.
But find out what kind of energy that it brings before bringing stones in, because just like herbs, just like any parts of magic, just like different rituals of any kind, really, when you're bringing in those energies, you have to make sure, one, they mesh with you and how you deal and how you feel, um, and how you want the environment around you to feel. Because you wouldn't put like an alchemist or herbalist inside of a sterile hospital. You wouldn't want to create that kind of a feeling whenever you are attempting to commune with spirit or gods or anything like that. You wouldn't want to do that in that kind of an environment. So you kind of have to keep that in mind whenever you're trying to use crystals or herbs, in my opinion.
Oh yes. Yes. So also, being that you have that reference guide right there, what was it again? And
Again,
this one.
Cunningham's Encyclopedia of Crystal, Gem, and Metal Magic, because metals also matter, and this I would say more so for jewelry. So if we're doing like amulets or things like that, or if you're like me and you're allergic to everything but freaking gold. So
Yes.
it kind of lets you know, like, okay, if you're having to use this specific type, here is the energies that it attracts. Um, because steel and silver are going to react differently to, pyrite and gold. Platinum is going to react differently than tin. Um, Things like that. Energies, they different.
Yeah. Oh yes. So now we've gone ahead and we've covered quite a few different sorts of physical objects and items that one can use for protective purposes. And of course, you can utilize a physical to generate this sort of thing. But we're going a little more so to the less tangible, the intangible, and all of that, for these last several manners and methods, before we wrap things up. So there's music, right?
Mhm.
Vibrations, frequencies, whether you want to talk about an actual song or a composition and all of that. You can talk about not only that, but mantras as well. If we're talking about vibratory things, frequencies, so on and so forth. Just having those as two examples of just sounds in general. But when you think of music and sounds and all of that as a means of defense, what comes to your mind?
Much like the incense. Much like the incense. I know whenever I do like a deep scrub of my house, whenever I am really getting out the negative bullshit, um, I am singing the entire time. I am filling that space with my energy, my voice, my purpose, versus something else's purpose, something else's intent. something like that. You know what I mean? So
Yes.
very much along the lines of incense and filling the space with the energy that you want it to be, but also, um, so a lot of frequencies have been shown to disrupt or cause harm to, like, if we're looking in the body, like cancer cells, like viruses, illnesses, bacteria, things of that nature. And so, in using music, frequencies, things of that nature in your space, it's pretty much doing the exact same thing where you are taking that positive energy and that intent that you're wanting to fill the space with, and you are making it impossible for that negativity to thrive there.
Yes. So filling up the space and all of that and putting up that energetic padding once again.
More or less, yes.
Yes. Okay, so in covering that very briefly, now let's get to at least something I would consider myself a bit more so utilizing is thought forms or astral beings or guardians or you know what have you in terms of that sort of things, less tangible in manners, um, those sorts of things with consciousness. And of course, there's a variety of thought forms. I've gone ahead and spoken about it singularly and in very other, like, various other capacities as well, enjoying conversations. But yes, there's thought forms of various means, right? So if we're going ahead and talking about something that you program individually and are task oriented, then servitors, right? That's one manner of doing so. Also, in terms of a specific example from the Jewish faith and practices, whether you're doing it Kabbalistically or what have you, there are golems that you can go ahead and construct. Actual physical, like golems, like little representations of them, and you can inscribe, Jewish characters, Hebrew, onto their forehead or their chest, what have you, or also you can go ahead and do it, less tangibly, like more so visualization mentally, all these sorts of things. And then, of course, familiars, which I know that's definitely more so your particular flavor and or something that you have already discussed with our
Mm-hmm.
good friend Raven in a previous conversation. So, generally speaking, when it comes to thoughtful astral beings, guardians, whether it be examples that I have stated thus far, in general, go ahead. What say you?
What say I? In terms of that, so as a medium, um, when I see people, and this one's going to go along the lines of exterior defense rather than created defense. When you are born, you have spirit guides, you have people that are on your side, you have people that are on your team, in a sense, and they are there regardless of whether you believe in them or not. Your belief in them does not matter because they are there to assist you and to guide you. That is what they do. Um, Now, they are not servants. They are not less than. They are not somebody there to, like, order and boss around. That is not the purpose of them. They are there to help you when they deem it necessary. It's more like a parental guidance rather than a um or an advisor to a deity, or not to a deity, to a monarch rather than a boss. You know what I mean? Um,
Yes.
but there are those that you can create for specific purpose, because your spirit team, well, yeah, if you ask them to, they will help you. They will definitely protect you, but you have to ask for it. Um, and only so much, because they can't negate some of the experiences that you have to have in your life, in a sense. But the ones that you create, the thought forms, the golems, the servitors, things of that nature, uh, those are more specific purpose. And honestly, I see those more as preventing issues from the physical realm rather than the astral or spiritual one. Whereas your spirit team is more along the lines of like, okay, if somebody's trying to hex you or some shit, I got you. But even though that's partly from the physical world, because it is acting in the intangible, that would be more spirit team rather than golems or servitors
Yes.
or things like that.
Yes. Yes. But so in mentioning what you are referring to as spirit guides or spirit team, right? You know, various entities could be family related or they be, you know, preeminent entities that have a namesake prior to your lifetime and all of that. A lot of semantics, a lot of different things that we don't need to get into at the moment in regards to that.
Mhm.
But I'll go ahead and throw two particular recommendations out there for those who are wanting to call upon entities that whether you know you have an affinity with them or not, that can go ahead and pretty much be there at your hour of need when you call upon them, whether it be through an elaborate sort of we're setting up defenses and all of that, or just like at a moment's notice. So both of these are going to be angelic in nature because my primary shtick in our group of friends and known individuals is I'm an angel guy. I am by all means a hammer, and I see situations as a nail, and I like to keep it simple, stupid. And I'm not gonna lie, pretty just simplistic of oh hey look they're here, go ahead and call on them, bing bang boom, very easy. They'll get the job done. I guess in that sort of sense, based on the descriptions of angels and archangels from various people at various times, I guess we're both similar in that regard. Me and the angelic folk, the angelic choirs and such. Um, but yes, so to go ahead and provide two examples, and in terms of the means and methods that they utilize, you can say the first one I'm going to go ahead and mention is kind of like standard protection. We're setting up boundaries, we're setting up defenses. The second one is similar to what I stated before in relation to the obsidian blade. Their temperament is more so the best defense is good offense. Yes, so the first of these two are going to be Archangel Sandalphon, right? And with them, they are more so the flavor of utilizing the defense and protective boundary measures, right? So, in terms of like what they're associated with, for those who are unaware, Sandalphon, they are associated with the Spear of Malkuth, the Earthly Spear, the Kabbalistic Tree of Life, and all that. So it can help not only with physical sort of threats and things needing protected against, but also intangible ones as well. And there are a variety of means and manners in which you can go ahead and contact, interface, get in touch with Sandalphon. And there's a variety of sources out there on the net, on books, what have you. One source that I recommend all the damn time and I use rather frequently is Angelic Sigils, Keys, and Calls by Ben Woodcroft. And, that has many sigils within it that can help you interface with not only Sandalphon, but other angelic entities as well, rather easily. Now, the second of these two, which I had previously mentioned a moment ago, is more so best defense and good offense. This would be Archangel Michael. So, in the regards of them, they're more so popular, they're more so familiar. If you think of angels and specific ones, you're probably going to think of Michael and or Gabriel or Raphael initially, because those are the three biblically named in the standard versions of the Bible that we have today. And, there's once again variety of means and manners, methods that you can go ahead and utilize to call upon Michael. Standard prayer or invoking or sigils or what have you. Once again, you can use the Ben Woodcroft book for the sigils, but also there is a particular method called the Blue Flame Shield that you can go ahead and utilize. So in many cases, right, Michael is attributed to fire and to flames. And for those who are not necessarily aware of how flames work and all of that, we think of the colors orange and red when it comes to this element. But in terms of where it is the hottest visibly, and the inner flame that happens to be blue and white within the layering of colors. Say if you have a candle and or a Bunsen burner, like you're in chemistry class or something like that, and you're observing flames, it would be blue and or white at the hottest layers and points of it. So this is, the extreme sort of heat that Michael can bring, not necessarily to burn you, but to go ahead and cleanse you, to go ahead and burn the shit that you don't want associated with you, but not doing harm unto you, to protect you, and all that sort of thing. And in terms of my own particular means and manners, not only just having a shield, like a separate apparatus from oneself, but you can utilize this as an armor, right? So having that sort of visualization, and for those who have watched the anime series Naruto, right? If you happen to remember the character Sasuke Uchiha, who utilizes his clan's technique of Susanoo, which is named after, inspired by the Shinto kami, the Shinto deity of Susanoo, and representing that in the series, but he is encased in this armor of Susanoo and the bluish purplish flames in of itself. So you can attribute this sort of method and or tactic to Archangel Michael as well. And of course for any other entities, deities that you deem appropriate and all of that sort of thing. Even Susanoo themselves, if you are a fan, if you are have an affinity with them. But, those are just a couple examples of various entities, whether it be angelic, gods, goddesses, elementals, all that sort of thing, you can call upon for that quote unquote external assistance as well. Do you have any thoughts in relation to that, Debbie?
No, those ones, I mean, those are the ones that we use most of the time. I know I have used a little extra with the particular deities and ones that protect me, where they will actually eat things. They eat things and they use that as energy to benefit me. So
Yes.
hate doesn't get to me. You're only building me up.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. Good old alchemy, whether it be inner or outer or whatever the hell you want to attribute it as. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Energy never dies, it only transforms.
Exactly.
That principle. Yes. And I guess to go ahead and speaking about particularly named entities or beings or what have you, last thing that I mentioned that I was kind of saving to cover when I kind of looked at like how the chronological list of topics were. I'm like, you know what, this probably would be better for later. Is offerings, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you've spoken on that singularly yourself,
Mm-hmm.
and the way that you had stated a while ago, like a long while ago, and I kind of like saved as a little note for whenever we in fact had this sort of discussion, was that like if you're going ahead and providing offerings in a protective sort of manner, it's kind of like mafia like in a sense. For those who are familiar with those sorts of practices, and by all means, please expound upon them.
Yes. Um, also, you're a jerk for keeping that note, just so you know. Um, it's my comments against me. It's like, hey, I'm gonna pay you for your services. This is my protection money. No.
Yes.
With that, I would highly encourage. If you are going to use offerings in terms of asking for protection, you are literally paying them. That is like a security service. That is mafia like. That is very much on the lines of, impersonal. Now I am more personal with my spirits, my deities, the ones that are around me. But I understand if you want to remain almost business and professional rather than um, interdependent. So I get it, but know that it is going to be a lot colder of a protection rather than a interwoven one, if that makes sense. Um, but yes, so that's more of like an employee relationship. So figure out how you would like to set up your team in a sense. Like I said, I'm more of like a personal basis one rather than this is purely business. And if you don't give me what I want, I'm not going to be here.
Oh yes, yes, and very much so. Along the same lines of more so having a personal relationship with entities and what have you of angelic and or other varieties. And I'm not gonna lie, it's pretty fucking dumb if you're going ahead and doing the impersonal manner. That's my personal opinion. I don't utilize physical offerings or anything like that. Generally speaking, and definitely wouldn't in this case, because if you're having a symbiotic partnership, if you're having that sort of like interaction, like they're giving you energy, they're taking energy away from you, and in most cases going to be negative shit. So you're going ahead and they can convert it for you and or utilize it for whatever purposes are needed, whether it's to benefit you or to spread it along the pipeline and all this more so semantic convoluted shit that we're not at the evolutionary stage as a individuals in the species to go ahead and comprehend more so. But yes, all in all, go ahead and offerings are able to be utilized, and also if it those that within the manner of protection can be utilized, and that but at the same time you can already get protection from them and just give them offerings because you're gracious and gratuitous. So it also ties in with your purpose and or intention with providing that in relation to them providing protection and such. But yes,
Yeah.
go ahead, go ahead.
No, I mean like in showing appreciation, like if you're wanting to, like you have that personal relationship with your spirits and you're wanting to show them appreciation, burn them a candle. Let them feed off the energy of the candle. It's like, "Hey, I love you guys. I appreciate you guys. Here's some energy. I want to do this for you." And that's fine. But I don't like the transactional nature of just like, here's my offering. Protect me. Cool.
Yes, exactly, like the mafia.
Yeah. You jerk.
But yeah, so to go ahead and wrap things up, there's just one more thing I want to address before any like final thoughts that you have, Debbie. It's just a couple books that have very simplistic methods that you can go ahead and utilize aside from what we've mentioned thus far. Could include that in some way, shape, or form, but two books that I think are very keep it simple, stupid, and you can utilize for protective manners as well as others are Spiritual Cleansing, a Handbook of Psychic Protection by Jalaja Michaharik or Mikaharik. I do not know how to pronounce it. It's Eastern European in some way, shape, or form. That is not my cadence. That is not my flavor of speaking. Obviously, American English is mine. But there's also Ritual and Essential Grimoire by Damien Eccles and his wife, Lori Davis, that came out around last year in 2022 in regards to the time that this conversation has been had and also posted and released out there. But yes, so those two books should provide various means and manners for you to be able to protect oneself from whatever sort of humanly or inhuman, intangible, psychic harm that may come your way, and all of that. Um, and yeah, so that pretty much wraps up, I guess you can say, the itinerary in regards to this topic that we had prepared beforehand with whatever inserts we gave. And what are your final thoughts on the topic of protection magic? And I should say, as a subtitle, for those Harry Potter fans out there, this also serving as a defense against the dark arts as well. Yes.
Yes. No, in terms of protection magic, find what fits you, experiment. Um, but keep in mind, whenever you're bringing a bunch of different things together for your space, figure out what feeling that you're wanting to go for, because this is your home. If you're wanting to protect your workspace, how do you want the workspace to feel? How do you want your bedroom to feel? You don't necessarily want your bedroom to feel like your bathroom, or your bathroom to feel like your living room, or anything like that, right? We each has its own personality, each has its own energy to the space. So work with that energy and then come up with a plan. You don't have to go off of, like, the books that I have, of course, are Cunningham, and I love Cunningham because I find him incredibly thorough. But figure out where you're getting your information from, how these things are interacting together, and what kind of a combined energy that you're wanting to put over your home. Because maybe you want like an overarching theme. Like for me, like I said, I love the calm, the cozy, the little bit sleepy, but sleepy is not a bad thing. But it's protected and it's warm and it's safe. But you may want something more specific for your workplace, like a protected but sharply focused. So less of that sleepy feeling. Just kind of brainstorm all of that as you're going through, because that's really going to help you come up with the best case scenario for your own home protections.
Oh, yes. And that was very well said. The one point I will go ahead and just have a little slight detour is, hey, sometimes you may want to go ahead and mix aspects of different rooms. I mean, like sometimes you want TV in the bathroom, sometimes you want yourself a little mini fridge in the bedroom or somewhere else. You know what I mean? Like,
Maybe.
depends. It doesn't have to be all completely rigid in terms of house arrangements and all that, unless someone's strictly following feng shui or something like that.
I mean,
But
maybe,
yes.
but I mean, or maybe you're just in one of those like a studio apartment or something where it's all just one big
Oh
room.
yes. Oh yes. But yes, so I believe we've gone ahead and pretty much covered and run the gamut. And yes, a lot of stuff that you can go ahead and utilize for your protection and safety, and keeping those that you care about and yourself uh, good and dandy, and doing it to the best of your ability. So yes, this has been Twisted,
And Devi.
and yes, glad that you went ahead and listened to this. Tune in next time or whatever. But more importantly, stay frosty, Neguses. Peace.
Have a good one.